My sister's 6-month betrayal with my fiancé. Discover how I transformed my wedding dreams. Emily's future lay wrapped in ribbons and flowers, each meticulously planned detail mirroring the hopes she danced with for years. But an unexpected meeting with a family friend unraveled it all when whispered rumors led her to an earth-shattering truth. Her fiancé Jake had been seeing her younger sister Sarah for 6 long months. The fabric of her existence, woven with the threads of love, trust, and the bright promises of a wedding, had become an agonizing tapestry of betrayal. She stopped in her tracks, her heart racing, a surge of indescribable emotions flooding her mind. How could this happen? The bookstore's quaint backdrop faded away, leaving nothing but a cold emptiness in its place. The laughter of friends celebrating her impending nuptials echoed in her ears, now a cruel reminder of charades played behind her back, setting her nerves alight. She clenched her fists, fighting against a whirlwind of anger, disbelief, and despair. In the weeks that followed, the weight of those dual betrayals crushed her beneath its enormity. How could she have placed her faith in Jake, the man she was to marry, and in Sarah, the sister she had loved deeply? The academic pressures of her scholarship at the university loomed over her like a storm cloud, but they paled in comparison to the emotional chaos churning within. A voice inside her whispered that she should confront them, but fear clutched at her throat. What would she say? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Days turned into restless nights filled with sleepless thoughts, her mind racing as she worked to navigate the overwhelming emotions. Could she ever forgive Sarah? With each passing hour, her anger mutated into a profound sense of loss. Her wedding plans now felt like ashes in her mouth. Questions raced through her. Was Jake merely a passing chapter in her life? Could she ever trust again? What dreams could ever be rebuilt from such betrayal? A flicker of hope emerged in her darkest moments as Dr. Reynolds, her stern yet inspiring professor, reached out during class. "You are capable of so much more than the confines of this moment," he had said, his piercing gaze igniting something within her. His words became her lighthouse in a storm, urging her to redirect her efforts toward her studies, her identity, nay, her very essence. Yet the heartache remained, a tangled vine choking the very foundation of her being. As she prepared herself for an inevitable confrontation with the two people she once cherished, the depth of their betrayal echoed louder than the silence of her gut-wrenching heartache. The thought of standing before them filled her with dread and determination. The air crackled with unanswered questions. Could she reclaim her narrative? Or would she allow the fragments of her dreams to forever define her future? Emily stood at a crossroads, uncertain yet aware that somewhere in the wreckage of her shattered dreams lay the key to her rebirth. But the clock ticked on, and the defining moment where she must demand the truth loomed closer. Unknown to her, buried deep within the shadows of betrayal, was a family secret that would unravel everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and she herself. Would she face the abyss lurking behind the lies? Or could she carve a new path amidst the ruins left behind? Emily's resolve burned within her like a flame, poised against the chilling draft of betrayal. The prospect of confronting Jake and Sarah loomed too large to ignore. Each day led her closer to a decision, and for the first time in weeks, she found herself determining that avoidance was no longer an option. Instead, she needed to grapple with her tangled feelings head-on. In the depths of the university library, Emily tucked herself into a secluded corner, surrounded by towering stacks of books. The scent of paper and old leather was comforting, yet her heart hammered against her ribcage as she opened her notebook, a vessel of both sorrow and aspiration. Her mind was racing towards clarity. She couldn't move forward locked in the anguish of betrayal. She felt the inexorable pull to reclaim her narrative, to wield her pain not as a shackle, but as a sculptor's tool for her emerging self. A fleeting memory of Dr. Reynolds' words echoed in her mind. "You are capable of so much more." It was more than just a message of encouragement. It felt like a personal mandate. She began to jot down a list of what she'd accomplished in her life. The accolades, the scholarly achievements, the moments when she had taken the stage and commanded attention. With each new item, the taut threads of her identity began to weave again, rekindling her sense of self-worth amid the devastation. Emily envisioned the confrontation. Her hands ached to grasp the tangible whispers of truth that had haunted her days. When she held up Jake's images, the sweet moments frozen in time, their smiles gleaming, she thought of how she would shatter that illusion with the explosive reality. He had stolen more than just her trust. He'd taken the narrative she had constructed around their love. And Sarah, the sister who had stood unwaveringly at her side during countless trials, how could she face her with honesty, betrayal, and the chilling silence that now draped over their shared past? The night before she intended to confront both of them, Emily didn't sleep. Shadows of doubt tangling with determination filled her mind. Could she withstand their defenses? Would they dismiss her pain in the name of an affair marked by secrecy? A surge of anger came, but beneath it there was the burgeoning realization of strength, the kind that emerged not from absence of fear, but from its presence being acknowledged. As dawn broke, painting the horizon in soft hues of gold, Emily took each breath with purpose. She had wasted too much time succumbing to her heartbreak. It was time to emerge stronger. When she eventually walked into the cafe where the three of them had once celebrated joyous moments together, she was not merely a woman scorned, but a sister, a partner, and an individual resolute in reclaiming what had been taken from her. The moment had arrived. The table held echoes of laughter and promises of shared futures, now ghostly remnants of a past she could not return to. Shuffling her papers nervously, she summoned the courage she had cultivated. The crescendo of her heartbeats resonated in her ears, but perhaps it was her strength coalescing into unwavering clarity. As she prepared to speak, the door swung open and the conversation shifted. The world beyond their reunion felt fragile. Another figure stood in the doorway, drawing all attention away from her. The face that emerged held truths Emily had not anticipated. "Emily, I'm here to tell you everything," Jake said. The fervency in his voice chilled her despite herself. And just like that, the confrontation she'd built in her mind was suddenly eclipsed by an unfolding twist that had the potential to alter everything once again. Would this revelation be her saving grace, or the final nail in the coffin of her shattered dreams? Emily's pulse quickened, her initial resolve faltering in the face of Jake's declaration. The air felt heavy with unspoken words and secrets, the cafe's warm glow now casting long shadows over her confidence. Every ounce of preparation shifted within her as the fissures in her world widened. What could he possibly reveal that would change anything about the betrayal she had already endured? "Everything," he repeated, his voice steady yet tight, as if straining against the weight of his confession. For a moment, all the noise of the cafe dissolved. The clinking of cups, the hum of conversations, and the soft clatter of chairs faded into a backdrop of Emily's racing thoughts. What if his everything somehow justified the actions that had fractured her trust? What if it was an attempt to manipulate her emotions further? She felt the embers of her internal fire reigniting, fueling her determination to reclaim her narrative. But now the stakes had escalated. "Let's hear it," she said, her voice initially trembling but gaining strength with each syllable as she stood tall, ready for whatever truths lay ahead. The room felt charged, as if the very air around them anticipated the impact of Jake's forthcoming revelations. "You have to understand," he began, visibly trying to collect himself. "What happened between Sarah and me? Frozen, Emily's mind howled, and the mental images of her sister and Jake tore at the very fabric of her composure. How could he not understand that there was no way to justify what he and Sarah had done? Yet curiosity nudged her to listen. There was a flicker of something in Jake's gaze that hinted at remorse. Perhaps it was guilt or regret, but it intrigued her, igniting a spark that urged her to stay focused. As Jake continued speaking, each word felt like a careful, deliberate excavation of buried sins. I was confused, lost in my own insecurities. In a moment of weakness, Sarah— He paused, lips twitching as if wrestling with the enormity of his admission. She reached out to me, and I allowed myself to fall into that moment, to escape the pressure of expectations that were closing in on me. Emily swallowed back a bitter response, aware of rising internal turmoil. The pressure of expectations? The pressure she felt every day. Why had she never thought to turn to him for support? They were building a life together, and us. Yet this moment had constructed a chasm that separated them irreparably. "It's not how I wanted things to unfold. I'm in love with you, Emily," he said fiercely, as if his sentiments could somehow bridge the chasms they had created. His words lashed at her, surfacing a debate within her. Could love be rekindled once trust was shattered? The memories of shared laughter and future plans danced mockingly in her mind. How many times had she poured herself into this relationship, believing in the vision of a shared future? All of it was at stake now, teetering on the brink. In that moment, Emily realized that Jake's confession wasn't just about his betrayal, but also about his own fragility. She felt a wave of empathy crash against the anger she had been nurturing. Perhaps this vulnerability offered her an opportunity, a decision point about how she wanted to shape her own future. "Emily?" Jake's voice drew her back, a clee wrapped in the air between them. She needed to process the offer of his truth. Was this new understanding enough to begin rebuilding? Or should she shut that door on him and reclaim her narrative on her own terms? There in the cafe, with Jake's honesty mingling with her own, Emily felt the pressure of life's choices settling heavily upon her once again. As she weighed her options, the door swung open again. This time, it was Sarah standing there, her expression unreadable. Emily's heart sank further, knowing the weight of confrontation now extended to her sister. "Did I miss something?" Sarah's voice rang out, a stark reminder that this wasn't just about Emily and Jake anymore. The narrative spun wildly beyond her control. Would Emily find the courage to face her sister next, or had she merely opened another wound in what she thought would be a path to healing? Emily's mind spun as she faced Sarah. The familiar face now seemed foreign, a stranger wrapped in pretense. Each heartbeat thudded against the walls of her chest, containing a world of anger and confusion. She had envisioned this moment, yet no amount of imagined confrontation had spared her from the reality of its weight. "Don't dodge it, Sarah," Emily demanded, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of unresolved pain. "I need to know what you have to say." Sarah's brow furrowed, the earlier confidence wavering as she took a step forward. "It's not how you think it is, Emily." "Then how is it?" Emily challenged, feeling the embers of rage flare anew. Was it just a series of unfortunate events? Did you and Jake get lost in a reality show twist? You think I'm going to buy that? In that cafe, amidst the mundane backdrop of daily life, Emily reaffirmed her stance. Despite the betrayal, despite the shock, she had the upper hand right now. A flicker of strength danced within, compelling her to confront not just Sarah, but also the illusions that had clouded her vision. Sarah swallowed hard, emotions colliding behind her eyes. "It was a moment of weakness. Both of us were struggling," she trailed off, the frailness of her words suffocating in the charged air. "A moment?" Emily echoed incredulously. "This wasn't a slip. You kept it hidden. You both chose to keep lying." The intensity of her revelation punctuated a silence that wrapped around them like a thick blanket. Emily felt a rush of empowerment surging through her. She was no longer just a victim caught in a web of deceit. She was an active participant in her narrative now. "I want you to know what you did demolished not just my relationship, but my faith in you," Emily continued, letting the honesty spill forth like a long overdue confession. "You've broken our sisterhood, Sarah." For the first time, Sarah looked vulnerable, raw. "I never meant to hurt you, Em. I thought what we had was—" "Enough," Emily interjected, refusing to listen to irrelevant justifications. Beneath the heat of her anger lay another realization, the need for personal growth that had been simmering beneath the surface. If betrayal could reshape her priorities, so could her response. With a flash of clarity, Emily resolved to reclaim not just her relationship with Jake, but her self-worth. She wouldn't allow this chaos to define her future. "You need to leave, Sarah," she asserted, "and I need to decide what I want for myself moving forward." As Sarah's face crumbled, Emily felt the power of choice crashing against her hesitance, shifting the trajectory of her path. It was in that decision to send Sarah away that Emily grasped her priorities, not just to hold on to what was familiar, but to carve a new identity, one where she made the choices. "But, Em," Sarah's voice was small as she pleaded for an understanding that might never come. "Sarah, this isn't a game. You've crossed a line and we need time apart." In her heart, Emily knew she was retracing her narrative, sculpting it with intention. Facing Sarah had opened a floodgate. It was time for courageous decisions. As Sarah slipped away, leaving a void behind, Emily collected herself, determining on the direction forward. Now it was Jake's turn to reckon with the reality of his actions. She inhaled deeply, feeling a tide of doubts wash away, replaced by a newfound resilience. The gravity of their connection demanded a fresh perspective, and she was not about to shy away from this confrontation. Stilling herself, Emily glanced toward Jake, her heart pounding anew as she could almost hear the pendulum of their relationship swing. "It's time to talk, Jake. I need clarity. We both do." But as she took a step toward him, uncertainty twisted in her gut. Was she ready to confront her truths, or would the past's shadows hold sway? The moment of truth was upon her. Emily's breath caught as she made her way toward Jake, each step a mixture of resolve and apprehension. The cafe's warm ambiance felt stifling, suffused with lingering memories of laughter and shared dreams. Today, those echoes seemed distant, overshadowed by the gravity of betrayal that loomed large in her heart. She had entered this space with a sense of companionship, but now it was a battlefield, and every step toward him felt like stepping onto shaky ground. Jake's eyes met hers, and the warmth that once radiated from him was replaced by a cloud of uncertainty. He stood abruptly, pushing his chair back, the scrape a harsh reminder of reality. Emily could see the questions swirling in his expression and realized they were mirrored in her own mind. How had they arrived at this precipice? Was love truly enough to overcome the abyss that lay between them? "Emily," he began, his gaze falling. "I don't," she interrupted, drawing strength from the confrontation that had unfolded moments before. "You don't get to explain away what you did, Jake. I might not know what comes next for us, but I do know I deserve the truth." The resolve in her voice surprised her. This was not the timid woman waiting for him to decide their fate. It was a force carving her own path forward. As she studied Jake's face, a rush of anger fueled her conviction. He fidgeted, his hands betraying him with nervous gestures. She wondered, did he even comprehend the depth of the hurt he had caused? How deeply it cut to the core of her identity as much as her relationship? "I was confused, Em. I didn't mean for it to happen," he stammered, but Emily's quick glance silenced him. The moment dragged, filled with a suffocating tension, and all she could think was that she was here to reclaim her story. "Confused?" she repeated, her voice rising slightly. "You're not a child, Jake. You chose to cross that line, and now you're asking me for sympathy?" He opened his mouth to plead, but she refused to grant him the ground to unravel her newfound strength. Emily leaned in slightly, forcing herself into an assertive posture, tilting her chin upward. This was her moment, one laden with the potential for transformation. "Every second I held my breath, waiting for your honesty, was a second I lost faith in us. You have shattered more than our relationship. You've made me question my worth," she confessed, feeling her heart race, yet grounding herself in vulnerability, an act of empowerment. This was the turning point. This was where she could either drown or swim. "I know, he began again. The desperation in his eyes echoed the turmoil in her own heart. "No, just listen," she said, shaking her head. "You need to hear this. I am not looking for your validation anymore. You and Sarah, what you did was a reflection of your choices. I won't let it define who I am." As the outside world blurred into the background, clarity crystallized within her. Emily saw herself embracing her individuality, the concept of starting anew without the weight of Jake's betrayal anchoring her down. Perhaps she could rebuild not only her relationship with him, but also the very essence of who she was, an ambitious woman with layers yet to be discovered. "I need space to figure out what I actually want," she finished, her heart pounding with the finality of the words. "This conversation, it's the beginning, not the end. I won't be sidelined in my own life." As she stepped back, she could feel a shift, not only in her demeanor, but also in Jake's expression. A flicker of realization crossed his features, as if he was finally understanding the implications of his actions. For the first time, she suspected they might both be at a crossroad, one that offered both peril and promise. As she turned to leave, Emily felt a mixture of exhilaration and fear. She had faced what felt insurmountable. What would she find waiting in the unknown? Would she emerge not just intact, but stronger? And what would Jake choose now that she had reclaimed her voice? The possibilities churned, leaving her with an anxious flutter. The journey was just beginning. The cool air outside wrapped around Emily as she stepped away from the cafe, the weight of her confrontation still pulsating through her. Her heart raced, but with each stride away from Jake, she felt the burden of his betrayal lessen. She had spoken her truth, but now questions unraveled in her mind like threads from a fraying tapestry. What would she do next? How could she transform this betrayal into a stepping stone for her personal growth? She decided to head to her office, shifting gears. The calm of her work environment was a stark contrast to the turmoil she had just faced. The hum of her colleagues filled the air as she entered, their laughter echoing with the comfort of normalcy. Yet her mind was abuzz with the cacophony of emotions she couldn't quite silence. As she settled into her desk, an idea sparked. Instead of wallowing in her heartbreak, she could channel this experience into her work on a current project, an upcoming marketing campaign that revolved around empowerment. It suddenly felt as though there was profound relevance in her life experience. Could she integrate her struggle into the narrative she wanted to promote? Flipping her notepad open, she began sketching ideas. Each word captured a fragment of her pain and resilience, transforming it into a story of reclaiming power. Whenever frustration threatened to overwhelm her, she reminded herself of the determination she had just shown in confronting Jake. She conceptualized the campaign as both a personal and professional endeavor, aiming to inspire others dealing with their own setbacks. Hours passed, but the tension in her chest began to dissolve. Newfound creativity flowed from a depth she had yet to acknowledge, transforming her heartbreak into an industry message filled with authenticity. She envisioned women finding their strength in moments of betrayal, not hiding, but facing their truth head-on and emerging empowered. This wasn't merely a therapeutic exercise. It became an avenue for real change, an opportunity to connect with others experiencing similar feelings. A knock on her door startled her from her thoughts. It was Rachel, her closest colleague and ally, who had always encouraged Emily to leverage her voice in the workplace. "Hey, I saw you've been in here for a while," Rachel said, sensing something was off. "Everything okay?" Emily hesitated for a fraction of a second, but decided to be honest. "Not really, but I think I'm finding a way to work through it." Rachel raised an eyebrow, curious. "What do you mean?" "I'm thinking about incorporating my experience into our campaign for the launch. I want to show how rising from betrayal can lead to empowerment. It might resonate with others," Emily explained, her fingers grazing the fresh notes in front of her. Rachel smiled, lighting up the dim corners of Emily's heart. "That's brilliant. It's real, and people respond to authenticity." In that moment, Emily felt a surge of confidence she hadn't anticipated. For the first time, she recognized that darkness didn't have to overshadow her narrative. It could be a catalyst, a bridge towards something greater. The hesitations began to fade. The path ahead seemed clearer. But as the day wore on, her mind still wandered back to Jake. She couldn't help but wonder if confronting the reality of her choices would ignite something inside him as well. Would he recognize her determination as something to respect or dismiss? That thought lingered as she left her office, the chill of the evening air bracing against her flushed cheeks. She grasped her bag tightly, an odd mix of empowerment and uncertainty clouding the edges of her thoughts. Though her heart still ached, it no longer defined her. A new layer to her identity was emerging, marked by resilience and ambition. But still looming was the question she couldn't shake. How would Jake respond when he inevitably learned of her plans to reclaim her narrative? As she looked up at the dusky sky, determination sparked anew within her heart. The dawn of a new chapter was on the horizon, but first, the depths of truth had to be navigated. What revelations awaited her as she delved deeper into this newfound endeavor? And would confronting her past lead to more entanglements with Jake? The following morning brought a chill to the air that felt almost symbolic, as if the universe was acknowledging the shift in Emily's life. She sat at her desk, the soft light of her computer illuminating the notes she had scribbled the day before. Each line was a reminder of her determination, a promise to herself that she would emerge from this stronger. Today was pivotal. The marketing team was gathering for a presentation, and Emily was determined to unveil her transformed campaign, one that wove her personal truths into the fabric of their collective message. She rehearsed her pitch in her mind, contemplating how to articulate the profound connection between her own experience and the overarching theme of empowerment. As her colleagues gathered, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. When it was her turn to present, she felt a swell of vulnerability mixed with exhilaration. Standing before her peers, she took a deep breath and began. "Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about rising from betrayal." The words flowed from her with a steadiness she hadn't expected to feel. She wove elements of her story into the campaign, discussing how authenticity drives engagement, how sharing real experiences can inspire others to reclaim their power. She observed her colleagues' expressions shift from curiosity to rapt attention. They leaned in as she articulated her insights, detailing how vulnerability captives audiences and builds genuine connections. Each anecdote she shared, each statistical piece of evidence, resonated with her growing sense of purpose. When Emily concluded, the room erupted with applause, an affirmation echoing back what she had only begun to believe about herself. Standing there, feeling their encouragement wash over her, she was aware of a new identity forming within her, a professional who was not afraid to bring her whole self into her work. Rachel approached her afterward, a broad smile illuminating her face. "You nailed it, Emily. The authenticity of your message is what makes it so powerful. I think we have something that could truly resonate with our audience." The compliments felt good, but Emily also experienced a flicker of self-doubt, a nagging thought about the audience outside these walls, one that included Jake. Would this new confidence falter under scrutiny? Would he dismiss the very essence of what she had built? Right then, amid her celebration, she had a realization. She wasn't just reclaiming her narrative to show Jake what he had lost, she was reclaiming it for herself. The campaign was about more than a professional project. It was a declaration, a refusal to be defined by someone else's betrayal. As the day continued, she exchanged ideas with her team, and the project evolved, growing richer and more textured with each suggestion. Each meeting felt like a tapestry, interwoven with threads of her journey from heartbreak to empowerment. Yet, the darker corners of her mind were persistent. What if developing this campaign opened old wounds? Jake would undoubtedly hear about it, and part of her wondered if revealing the emotional core of her work would swing back to him. The possibility of confrontation loomed over her like a shadow. Could she maintain her newly minted confidence in the face of his reaction? Would he respect her journey, or would he dismiss it, as he had dismissed their relationship? That evening, exhausted yet empowered, Emily walked home feeling both exhilarated and anxious. She reflected on the day while scanning her surroundings. Somehow, she had managed to turn pain into possibility, but the specter of Jake lingered like a weighted blanket on her chest. She noticed her phone lighting up with a message, a notification from social media about Jake's new life. It sent a jolt of nerves through her. Torn between wanting to know and fearing his next step, she hesitated, pulse quickening. In that moment, the question solidified in her mind. What would she do if he confronted her about the campaign? The need for clarity began echoing in her thoughts, an urge to face him with the strength she had unearthed. How would their paths converge again, and what truths could come to light from this confrontation that would further reshape her narrative? Emily awoke the next morning as daylight streamed through her window, chastising the shadows of insecurity that whispered in the corners of her mind. Determined to maintain her newfound confidence, she decided to shift her focus away from Jake and toward her professional aspirations. Today would not only mark another step in the campaign's development, it was also a chance for her to solidify her internal narrative of strength. As she prepared for work, she mentally reviewed her goals, harnessing authenticity in her marketing approach, diving deeper into personal storytelling, and perhaps even spearheading initiatives that encouraged her peers to share their own vulnerabilities. These were not mere bullet points on a to-do list. They were the very essence of Emily's evolution, a commitment to transforming professional spaces into havens of genuine connection. Upon arriving at the office, she felt the palpable aura of excitement in the air. The campaign she had worked tirelessly on was finally gaining traction, and the feedback from her colleagues energized her. Each voice in the brainstorming sessions sharpened her focus, and she thrived on the dynamic conversations that ensued. Rachel, her steadfast ally, continued to champion Emily's vision, suggesting innovative ways they could integrate their branding with personal stories from their audience. Imagine, Rachel proposed, if we featured testimonials, real stories from real people about overcoming obstacles. Emily's heart raced at the idea. It was an inspired suggestion, perfectly aligned with the campaign's mission. She seized that moment, proposing they create a series of digital content pieces centered around these narratives, ensuring that their audience felt seen and heard. As the ideas flowed, a vision unfurled before her. She was not just soaring above her past, she was crafting something that could inspire others. This project was her canvas, and with every splash of creativity, she painted over the remnants of her betrayal. Yet beneath the excitement brewed an undertow of anxiety. The thought of Jake's potential reaction resurfaced, an unwanted echo that lingered uninvited. What if their conversations changed? What if he took issue with her newfound voice, objected to her raw honesty? It was during a particularly invigorating meeting, surrounded by her enthusiastic team, that she felt the first real stirrings of courage. They were discussing how to locate compelling stories when she suddenly said, "We could share our own." I mean, isn't that where true connection lies? When we lay our own experiences bare before others. A profound silence enveloped the room. Emily's heartbeat thrummed in her ears, worried her vulnerability had invited judgment. But then Rachel broke the tension with a decisive nod. Yes, this could redefine how we communicate with our audience. They'll see that we're not trying to sell them something. We're inviting them to share in a journey. Relief flooded through Emily, realizing her team had embraced the challenge instead of flinching from it. They spent the next hour brainstorming their own stories, sensitive topics ranging from personal struggles to perplexing dilemmas. With each shared experience, Emily felt more capable of facing Jake's reaction, as though every honest confession fortified her sense of self. Later that afternoon, a familiar chime broke through her concentration. A text from Jake. For a moment, she hesitated, the flutter of nerves compelling her to ignore it. Yet a wave of determination surged within her. Wasn't she stronger now? Wouldn't clarity from confrontation be a sign of her growth? She opened the message. It was brief, casual. Jake asking how she was doing. Direct, devoid of insinuation. "Hey, I'm good. Just been really focused on a project at work," she typed, an undeviating smile spreading across her face. Before she hit send, she paused, wrestling with the choice of revealing more, a small piece of her campaign that had been inspired by her healing journey. But as she hovered over the send button, she felt an unexpected sensation, empowerment washing over her, ushering in a quiet assurance that she couldn't hide who she had become. After a pause that felt eternal, she sent back a follow-up message, letting him in on a snippet of her work. Though she was braced for any potential backlash, beneath the weight of her fear lay something deeper: gratitude for the opportunity to share her truth. That decision sparked a deeper contemplation. There was something vital in sharing not just herself with people, but in learning how to set boundaries, realizing that her narrative would not depend on Jake's validation. The moment of truth approached as Emily prepared herself. How would Jake respond? Would he acknowledge her transformation? Or would his words cut back like a knife, attempting to belittle what she had built? The air thickened with anticipation as she awaited his reply, uncertainty curling around her like smoke. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready to face it armed with authenticity. The question echoed back. Would the confrontation become another layer in her healing, or a detour back to self-doubt? Emily's heart raced, a relentless drum against the backdrop of her thoughts. The silence in her office only amplified the sound of her pulse. Each tick of the clock a reminder of the impending response from Jake. She forced herself to focus on the vibrant stream of discussions from her teammates. But the chatter felt muffled, her mind swirling with what-ifs and maybes. Deep down, the anticipation of Jake's reply was painful. Revelations about her journey and personal storytelling on a professional front had ignited a collective flame in her coworkers, yet the flicker of fear about her relationship threatened to extinguish it. She closed her eyes briefly, picturing the new content strategies they had brainstormed, a tapestry of authentic experiences that would resonate with their audience. But what if Jake didn't understand? What if he dismissed her efforts, her transformations? Her phone buzzed like a live wire on her desk, jolting her from her reverie. This was it. She could almost hear her heart skipping a beat. She reached for it slowly, her fingers trembling as she unlocked the screen. Jake's message was straightforward, even bland. "Sounds great. Can't wait to hear more." An unexpected wave of relief washed over her. It wasn't the explosive acknowledgement she had been bracing for. It was just a casual response. Yet a nagging sense of dissatisfaction followed closely behind. Was this all he had to offer? She weighed her options. A part of her itched to probe deeper. She had just shared a piece of herself with him. In an instant, her frustration crystallized. This was a defining moment. She needed to go beyond the small talk and assert her journey. She crafted a message, choosing her words carefully. "Thanks. The campaign is evolving to include personal stories, and it's honestly quite empowering. I'd love to share my thoughts with you soon." As she hit send, Emily felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. Would he genuinely engage, or was he merely appeasing her? Drowning in thoughts, Emily forced herself to switch back to work, reminding herself of the power of vulnerability. That contrast propelled her through meetings that afternoon. She took every opportunity to inspire her colleagues, peppering their conversations with anecdotes about resilience, inspiring stories she had collected from others. Rachel watched her closely, admiration in her eyes. "Emily, you're on fire." "Today, the team really connects with your vision." Her zest, fueled by Rachel's encouragement, Emily dug deeper, searching within herself to unearth the raw narratives that had shaped her. Every story she unveiled became a stepping stone in her development, encouraging her peers to explore their own experiences. They were not just crafting a campaign, they were forging connections, bridging gaps, and cultivating understanding. While the hours melted away, the lingering question about Jake's perception of her transformation only festered. Did he even grasp the weight of what she had shared? Would he stand by her? Every time she glanced at her phone, nagging anticipation pulsed through her veins. Eventually, she could no longer ignore the thought brewing in her mind. She needed a discussion, a real conversation about boundaries, growth, and the future. It was essential, not just for her relationship, but for her own sense of self-worth. The possibility of confrontation loomed large. As she gathered her things to leave, she steeled herself for what lay ahead. The sun dipped low, casting a warm glow that seemed at odds with the cold uncertainty that had settled in her stomach. Tomorrow, she would have to confront him, to insist that he understands the journey she was embarking on. She was ready to navigate the thin line between honesty and vulnerability. The true test of her evolution awaited her. The moment had arrived for clarity. Would the walls around their relationship crumble, or would she press forward, fortified in her authenticity? In the dim light of her office, the shadows of doubt began to curl around her again. But this time, she embraced the tension, knowing it would push her to grow further than she had ever imagined. The following day began with a gray sky that mirrored the storm of thoughts swirling in Emily's mind. She arrived at the office earlier than usual, determined to prepare herself for the inevitable confrontation with Jake. Each note she jotted down regarding the campaign felt heavy with the importance of her personal journey. Empowerment, resilience, and honesty couldn't just be buzzwords. They had to represent her. When the clock struck noon, her heart pounded in rhythm with the ticking seconds. She needed to have this conversation, to articulate the shifts she had undergone, and to define the lines of her evolving self. The time had come to merge her personal and professional identities into a cohesive narrative. The air in the cafe where she had agreed to meet Jake felt thick with unspoken words as she settled into a corner booth. Moments stretched like hours, yet when he finally walked in, there was a noticeable lightness in his demeanor, a wisp of what once attracted her, but painfully overshadowed by the reality of their past. "Hey, Em," he greeted, sliding into the seat across from her, his tone casual, almost unaware of the gravity she felt. "Hey, Jake," she replied evenly, taking a deep breath. She had rehearsed this in her mind countless times, yet the weight of her emotions threatened to overshadow her resolve. "I want to talk." "Sure, about what?" he replied, but Emily could see the flicker of concern in his eyes. "It's about everything. What happens between us, you and Sarah, and how it has impacted me," she stated boldly, leaning forward. "I've been working on a campaign at the office about empowerment, and it's made me reflect on my own life." Jake shifted, clearly taken aback. "A campaign? You mean the one about personal stories?" "Yes," she nodded, summoning the courage that had blossomed during her presentations. "And I realized something profound. This isn't just a marketing project. It's a reflection of who I am now. I've spent so long feeling hurt, but I've transformed that pain into something constructive. I won't let your betrayal define me." He opened his mouth, but she held up a hand to stop him. "I need you to listen without interruptions. This isn't about blaming. It's about understanding my journey forward." "Okay," he said softly, a hint of vulnerability showing. "I need you to acknowledge that what you and Sarah did was not just a mistake. It shattered a great deal of trust and faith I had in both of you. But I won't be sidetracked by anger anymore." He opened his mouth, but she held up a hand to stop him. "I need you to listen without interruptions. This isn't about blaming. It's about understanding my journey forward." "Okay," he said softly, a hint of vulnerability showing. "I need you to acknowledge that what you and Sarah did was not just a mistake. It shattered a great deal of trust and faith I had in both of you. But I won't be sidetracked by anger anymore. I refuse to let it consume me, she articulated, each word deliberate. Instead, I'm channeling my energy to create change, to inspire others. I've set boundaries, and I need to know if you can respect them. Jake's expression softened, and she saw the hesitation in his eyes. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know that isn't enough, he admitted. I've thought a lot about my actions, and I want to be better. I'm ashamed. For a heartbeat, she allowed the flicker of hope to surface before grounding herself again. Shame isn't enough for me, Jake. I need you to embrace growth and recognize how I've had to rebuild my narrative. Our relationship was based on trust, and trust is what you broke. I understand, he said earnestly. I've been trying to figure out how to make this right. Emily studied him, her emotions roiling. His remorse felt genuine, yet she couldn't shake the reality of their shattered foundation. I am glad to hear you acknowledge it, but I have to prioritize my healing if I'm going to move forward. I can't do that while you're still defining my worth. What are you saying? He asked, confusion washing over him. I'm saying that right now, this is about me. I need to reclaim my life, and part of that means I have to create distance, she declared, her voice steady as she wrapped her mind around this commitment. Jake's brow furrowed, his gaze searching hers. Do you mean you want space, or do you mean for good? I need time and clarity. I don't want our past to cloud my future, she explained, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders as the words solidified her. I want to support you, Em. I don't want to lose you, he whispered, desperation creeping into his voice. Then show me you can respect my journey, she replied firmly. Let's take the time necessary for me to become who I need to be without the shadows of our past. Jake nodded, defeated yet understanding. I hope I can prove that to you. I'm sorry for everything, truly. With those words hovering in the air, a resolution settled in Emily's heart like armor. She felt a surge of empowerment coursing through her. This was her achievement. She had taken control, framed the narrative of her life on her terms, and for the first time, she was crafting a future without the constraints of betrayal. As they parted ways, she felt a rising tide of clarity and ambition. Stepping into the next phase of her journey, Emily understood that personal growth requires ongoing choices and boundaries. She would emerge from this stronger, wiser, and fully in command of her narrative. This was not merely a chapter in her story, it was the prelude to her own spectacular sequel. Now is the time. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Emily's journey. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel and be a part of these incredible stories of personal overcoming.